But we have a man who is suing ICE after the federal agents ended up showing up at his house, all because he ended up sending an email, maybe threatening the former head of the ICE.
A Rochester man filing a federal lawsuit today against the Department of Homeland Security and several ICE officials, claiming they violated his First Amendment rights. This comes after he sent a criticizing email to the agency's former acting director. Today, we take a closer look at the allegations and what some say this case could mean for free speech. A federal lawsuit filed Monday accuses the Department of Homeland Security and ICE officials of violating David Shriver's First Amendment rights by sending federal agents to his Rochester home with a warning over a critical email he sent months earlier to the then acting director of ICE.
You have rights to criticize the government. You have rights to contact the government and share your views. That shouldn't mean that the federal agents are going to knock on your door and give you a written warning about your speech. That's not how the First Amendment works.
Now, the main thing I want to know is, did he threaten someone in the email? Because if he threatened someone in the email, I can understand them coming up and trying to find them. But if he was simply just criticizing their tactics and how they're operating, that is his right to do as a citizen. But we'll have to see exactly what he was written in there. Let's keep going into this.
According to the complaint, after the January shooting deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy amid anti-ICE demonstrations in Minneapolis, Shriver sent an email to ICE Director Todd Lyons decrying the conduct of ICE agents, drawing comparisons to Nazi Germany, and predicting Lyons' conscience would haunt him.
Let's back that up a tad bit and read that out. So, it looks like he sent, "You are a monstrous human being and will go down in history as America's Reinhard Hendrick, the butcher. The way you are protecting the obvious execution in Minnesota, even as we see the videos, will lead to your downfall. Even Trump will turn on you before the end. You will be sad, despised man who eats himself alive with shame at your own pathetic weakness. You will never know peace. You will seek to lose yourself to escape the burden of knowing the truth about yourself. But wherever you go, you will find yourself. You will torment yourself until your last day on earth." Now, that's heavy, but that doesn't seem like a crime to me. Let's keep going.
Conscience would haunt him. Court papers say 5 months later, while away in Finland with his daughter, 2 ICE special agents visited Shriver's home and presented his wife with a warning notice informing him his email could be considered a threat. The suit also says after returning from their trip, a DHS agent tracked Shriver and his child to a New York City hotel. Adam Steinbaugh, an attorney with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, represents Shriver.
I think everyone would recognize that if the police showed up and arrested David for this email, that would be a very clear violation of the First Amendment. But the First Amendment also protects against forms of retaliation other than arrest. So if you have agents showing up to your house, confronting your wife, calling your cell phone repeatedly, tracking you down to a hotel you didn't tell them about, when you're traveling with your 7-year-old daughter, and then they give you a notice that says that your speech might be a criminal act, that is sure enough to make someone shut up.
Steinbaugh says he believes constitutional freedom protects Shriver's criticism.
A true threat which is not protected by the First Amendment is a serious expression of an intent to commit violence. But there's nothing like that in this email.
Yeah, I didn't see that personally. But let's get over into one more video and just see what else it tells us.
A New York man is now suing ICE and leaders of the Department of Homeland Security for sending federal officers to his door, warning him about an email that he sent to a former head of the agency. So David Shriver is now claiming that ICE officials are violating his First Amendment right to free speech after he emailed former ICE acting director Todd Lyons, calling him a, quote, monstrous human being, end quote, and then saying that he will never know peace and will torment himself until his last day on earth. So federal officers now showed up at Shriver's home when he was overseas, delivering him a warning notice saying that those remarks are a threat? Let's bring in Chief Legal Analyst Clive Rhodes to talk about this. So, I mean, there's a lot here to unpack. Kind of walk us through your thoughts first.
This is an interesting case. What I'll say is the allegations are going to be based in First Amendment speech, specifically First Amendment retaliation speech. This isn't whether the government can investigate threats. It's clear they can do that.
Okay.
But it's whether they have now went from investigating to now some type of retaliation and trying to curb or chill speech while doing that. Am I attempting to say, you know what, I'm going to push you away from stopping to say what you want because of some fear of someone coming to my doorstep like we have in the picture and now, forcing you to stop saying something that you have a constitutionally protected right to say. And so while the threats are what's highlighted here, it's not as much about the threat, it's how ICE treats those threats and did they investigate it properly.
Okay, so could this, Khalif, set new limits now on how far federal immigration authorities can go in acting on tips or online communication?
Yes and no. I mean, first of all, if you're taking it back to this case specifically, if there was a genuine threat, typically a threat, you want to have something like that followed up in a quicker time frame than say 5 months like they had in here. If the standard for communicating threats is that I believe that there's a genuine threat against me, that this person has the ability to do it, to carry it out, and now a reasonable person would believe, based on what they've heard, that they are in imminent fear of bodily harm. That imminent portion is important, like right now, not tomorrow, not next week, but now. And so if you're looking at these 5 months that it took them to come and follow through with the investigation aspect of this, you kind of tend to say, and this is what their attorneys argue, that there was no threat because most people aren't going to sit on their hands and say, oh, you know what? I forgot that they threatened me. Now let me go investigate it. That's what they labeled here as a reason to believe that there was no genuine threat. This was something that you just didn't like my content, which if you don't like my content, then now it's clearly First Amendment and it's a violation.
Which is what.
Yeah. And just thinking back to what we read, all he did was say that you understand what you're doing is wrong and God is going to judge you. You are going to spend the rest of your days in shame for what you've done and what you had to do. He didn't make one threat to be like, I'm coming after you. I hope you, he didn't do any of that. He didn't say that I'm planning to get you. It wasn't no threat. It just basically said, you're going to get, you're going to understand and feel exactly what you're doing and how wrong it is.
I was going to ask you, so what does the government really have to be able to prove to show that agents acted lawfully? And kind of where is this legal line between a legitimate investigation and then violating someone's constitutional rights?
You want to be able to point to our processes. Like we have a process in place to now find out who this individual was. You know, this letter was sent to us. It came to us a number of months ago. And now we want to be able to figure out that 5 months it took us that long to get to him. You know, we didn't start the investigation after 5 months. We got this threat. We started investigating it immediately, and it only took us 5 months to get there. I think that would help them prove their case that, yeah, we believe that this threat was there. And like they said, we take these types of threats seriously. You want them to take threats serious against public officials, people that are serving, that are putting themselves up in the public light. But you don't want them intimidating people or attempting to retaliate against folks for First Amendment protected speech. So the thin line, because that's all it is, it's a thin line. It's between when you started your investigation and what prompted that investigation. And then if you actually go further to this individual's words, were they a threat? There are a couple things that are alarming that jump off the page. You know, your last days on earth, you know, you'll never find peace. Those would tend to lead to threatening, you know, type of language. I don't think I would want to see anyone sending me a letter like that, but I'd have to look and say, well, the connection to it, how close are they? Is this person in California and I'm here in Charlotte? You know, I'm looking at all that to verify in my mind if this threat is something that I believe they can actually take action on, as opposed to just words they're saying.
Last words, and does he have a lawsuit?
I think there is definitely a strong lawsuit here on First Amendment retaliation grounds, for sure. I think it's moderate to strong, where some of them I'm saying are extremely weak. I don't think this one is weak at all. I think you'll have, I mean, you can go a couple routes. You can go nominal damages, give them $1, say that they violated you, or compensatory damages, be able to show that, hey, we'll put a dollar amount connected to the harm. He talks about, being scared to talk, being scared to make comments, things like that. If it now can escalate to something further than that, where you're having some, nightmares or dreams about this, then you obviously can get paid more, or the court can just do something called a declaratory judgment, saying, listen, what ICE did was wrong, you can't do it going forward. And finally, they could say something like an injunction. You can no longer do this by coming to someone's porch and attempting to threaten them from making those types of comments. So there are a couple.
Yeah, I 100% think they have a good argument for a lawsuit. We'll just have to see if the judge agrees and doesn't think what he said was considered a threat. I couldn't see it myself as being a threat, at least not in my sense when I think of a threat. But let's get over into the AI breakdown, y'all, just to see what else we can learn and see if we missed anything. So as we know, the man David, a resident of Rochester, New York, filed a federal lawsuit against the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security on July 6th, alleging that the federal agents violated his First Amendment rights after he sent a highly critical email to the agency's former acting director. So in January 2026, he emailed the acting ICE director, Todd Loines, how do you say his last name, outraged by the fatal shooting of 2 people by the federal officers during an immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. He called him a monstrous human being and compared him to a Nazi police officer. 5 months later, which is a lot of time if you truly think he's a threat, in June 2026, 2 DHS officials arrived at his home while he was on vacation. They handed his wife a formal warning notice declaring that his email was considered a threat and ordering him to stop the behavior. According to the lawsuit, agents later tracked him down to a New York City hotel upon his return to U.S. in an attempt to make him sign paperwork acknowledging his email was as potential crime. So that's crazy. So they try to get you to say, to agree that what you sent is a crime. So he filed a lawsuit by a nonprofit foundation for individual rights and expression. The complaint targets DHS secretary and the senior ICE leadership in the lawsuit. The email constituted protected political speech and criticism, not legitimate criminal threats. The delayed 5-month response proves the agency knows that he posed no danger. And the delivery of warning notice is a systematic tactic used by ICE to intimidate and chill the speech of peaceful government critics. DHS and ICE officials have defended the investigation, stating that ICE investigates all credible threats against its employees and officers, including directors. A statement from Secretary Mullen's office categorically denied that the agency attempted to suppress free expression, stated that anyone who threatens law enforcement will face consequences. Yeah, I don't know, y'all. Go back. What are your thoughts? Read that over again. Tell me, do you think that's considered a threat? At least to me, it sounds like he was mostly just criticizing what he did and stating that he did something wrong and he's going to understand that later on and he has to deal with it and live with that. It didn't sound like he was threatening to kill him, to end his life. Said, I'm waiting for you, and he did none of that. But what are your thoughts? Do you think he has a good chance for winning the lawsuit? That's the biggest thing. And if he loses the lawsuit, what does that mean for our freedom of speech? It's a crazy world we live in, y'all, but this is the type of stuff we have to review.